It's really interesting. Well, we're going to move on to, I guess it's a peculiar story from the Sohn's legacy, I'll just put it that way. And I had heard of this story. Some of you may, I know some of you may have heard of what we're going to talk about too. But I read about it in the book by Charles Frederick Wiley. And your handout, by the way, has excerpts from the Moss telling of this story. So we're not going to read through this now. This is for you to take. What we wanted to do was share what this story is about. While Cody's getting that set up, when we talk about the Sohn store, I wonder if Karen, you could help us out with where it was located and if there are any parts of buildings left that we would know today or be able to see today. So the geography of it.
Well,
do you want to come up or are you comfortable where you are?
Well, I can say right now, it's still the way it was expanded, and it was expanded in the 60s. And Cece can tell me more because she and Hugh bought that building and they own it. So it doesn't say Clover Farm Store on the top anymore, but it still is intact and here, but I'll tell you about it when I get up.
When you get up there, and be sure to say, pretend that I did know nothing about Ephraim.
Okay.
And you know what the street was and what landmarks I used to find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to, before when Karen first came, we were talking about the fact that I called this story about a machine, a contraption. And of course, we're talking about what infamous, peculiar machine, the chicken plucker. The chicken plucker.
It looks like a dicer.
Now, to give you a visual, we're going to play this video, which isn't of the song Chicken Plucker, but it's similar. Notice the rubber fingers, because that's mentioned by Moss in here as well. This is only a minute long, so let's see how this works. Can you share it?
See those rubber fingers? Okay, they would go around and around.
Are you kidding? I don't know how it works. It's the time.
Around and around, and you'd hold the chicken and the machine would go around and the feathers would come off. And a lady just said,
Hi.
Are you kidding?
Are you kidding?
Where?
And then she asked if the chickens wouldn't bruise.
Okay, so
now
Karen, you're gonna
With those blowers?
What was that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Yeah, somebody with a leaf blower is right outside my window.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Was on. Okay.
Okay, so thank you
Hey,
for inviting me today. And Kathleen referred this machine as quirky, peculiar, and a contraption. And indeed, it's all of those three, but it was more machine than contraption. My grandfather got the first patented chicken plucking machine back in 1920 or so. And he would pluck those chickens outside because there was a great demand for chicken dinner at all the hotels. So he would get the chickens and then butcher them and then pluck them outside and he'd crank. Well, when my grandfather had a debilitating stroke in 1945, he could no longer do anything. So my dad took over the grocery store and meat market, and he electrified it. So it was really cool. Originally, our grocery store was a little tiny meat market and part of a little shed like building on what we now have. It's what was it before?
Church Street?
Church Street, okay, and it was right next door to the electric company. And so, you all know the electric company was founded in about 19 16 or so, and the horn would blow. And then that would tell people that the electricity was going to go on, and the farmers could milk the cows, you could do, turn your lights on. And
That
then-
was that at the current chef's hat?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And then at that time, then the horn would blow again and tell you that you had so many minutes, you knew how long it would be before the electricity went off again. So there probably were several dark days. Today's dark days. But when he plucked those chickens, you thought probably that's all there was to it. But it was such a process. When I was a little girl, my sister and I would watch my dad butcher the chickens. First of all, we had an old farm kitchen. We lived upstairs in the store, and our big old kitchen was downstairs. And my grandmother had a great big zinc, Z-I-N-C sink. And at the end of the sink on Saturdays, the chickens would hang with their necks down, dripping blood into a faucet. And so it was quite a fun Saturday. And then after they were all drained, then they would get plucked. And then after they were plucked, then you would hold them again over a blue alcohol flame to singe the chickens. You had to singe all those pin feathers. And then you would put them in boiling hot water. And so those feathers were like real waxy, and you could pull those little pin feathers out. And then they were cooled down. So it was a real process. Now, when we got the chickens, after my father decided not to grow them anymore, we had them in a pen behind our garage, which would be Hugh Mulligan's office. It would be between the Schneeberger home. Dr. Schneeberger had a huge German Shepherd named Foxy. Foxy got chickens constantly. I know I've seen my father mad only a couple times in my whole life. He was an easygoing, happy-go-lucky guy. He was so mad. He did something that probably would put him in jail today. He poured turpentine on that dog's tail.
Oh.
And the dog went around and around and around and cried and cried and cried. He never came in there again, but he became a really nice dog. He became so young. For all categories. John and I would play every Saturday. We thought we were really wonderful. We were just movie stars because we had green, yellow, red plastic rings on our fingers, because the chickens were categorized with their colors. The yellow could have been a fryer, and the reds were roasting chickens, and the greens were shooting chickens. So that's how they were butchered. So we had a field day every week. Even my daughter remembers that when she was a little girl. we would butcher our chickens. So that contraption, after my dad and mom sold the store in the early 70s, went to my cousin Erland Seiler from up in the settlement on Town Line Road. He lived on the farm that Fuzzy Sundstrom now owns. And when he died, the contraption stayed there in the barn. But we used it into the 1990s. That thing was so sturdy and it was so essential. A friend of ours in Jacksonport raised turkeys one year in the late 1990s. And we said, oh, we know somebody who has a plucker. And so he borrowed the old chicken plucker and did up the turkeys, and everybody borrowed it.
That's funny.
The only ones around. So we would have any questions? Yes.
How big?
It was about like this. And then it had this big barrel with the little rubber fingers. And then when dad electrified it, you could hold it like that and start the motor. And there was a belt and a wheel and a motor.
And when it chickens died while they were being black.
No, but they had their heads cut off by then and drained into the bucket.
Oh, is it still there?
Yeah.
Is it still
Well,
around?
3 years ago, I asked Fuzzy about it because I had heard they used that they used the phrase, they talked about chicken plucker, Doug Manchesky with the Northern Sky Theater. It was in one of their shows. And so after I heard about it, I asked Fuzzy if he could find it. He said, oh, sure, I know just where it is. And then he went up in the barn and looked and it was not there. So it probably disintegrated. But it was pretty old.
I thought we could have a social. A chicken plucking social.
So, well, I have a couple questions, but the first is, so the chicken has its head cut off.
Yes,
And then there are those rubber fingers.
Yeah.
Did you lay the chicken in between the fingers or?
no, you just held it on top of the fingers and started
Oh.
the drum.
And that's sort of just spun it on.
And the feathers were fine.
Kind of sounds like a polisher.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately, but yeah.
years ago, and Dr. Mr. Wiley said that the feathers drifted all over, wouldn't the neighbors get tired of that week after week? Feathers.
Was this machine portable? I mean, you mentioned man who brought the turkeys. Did
I think you could, oh yeah, you could.
they give it to you?
No, you
No,
could
you
take
could
it,
take
they could come and get it.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay.
So after you cut off the head, then did you take care of the innards?
Oh, yeah,
Because,
oh, sure, and
the
my grandmother,
different parts are pretty delicious.
oh, yes, my grandmother would soak all the innards in the sink. Cause she would take the gizzard, the liver, and the hearts,
Mhm.
and the rest would get,
Gizzard.
Scrapped for something.
So make a
But
broth.
she would soak them in the sink in cold water, and then when they dressed the chicken, they would stuff them back in the chicken if it was a roaster.
Interesting.
Oh, so the purchaser would also get that.
Sure, absolutely, sure.
How many chickens do you think we're going through that plucker on like a weekly basis?
Oh, gosh, maybe 60, 80
Wow.
Wow.
at least,
Yeah. What do you?
Because-
That's a lot of feathers.
a lot of feathers, and so Dad he was kind of, okay, another word that Kathleen said was innovative. Yeah. He built some sort of a tin or a steel hood on top.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the feathers wouldn't fly up in the sky.
Can you do anything with chicken feathers? Anything useful?
I don't know.
Yes, you can make pillows out of them.
I think so, because I had a lot of feather pillows my grandma made.
Would he wear some sort of mask over his face so he wasn't inhaling all those little feather particles?
I can't remember, Julia, I really can't.
Okay.
Karen, you had a story about a woman had come in and she wanted a certain chicken. But she wanted a bigger one. Were we just talking about that? And your dad said, I'll go get one. I'll get the bigger one. You don't remember?
No, but he probably did. People
Yeah.
came around the meat counter,
So,
stood right over his meat block and said, now, Bill, I want you to trim it just like
Oh, yeah.
this.
Yeah, I remember that.
I do too.
Yeah.
That once was in your apartment, you used as a bedside table, some contraption. Do you remember what that was?
That was Dr. Sneeberger's, I
A
have.
sterilizer or something?
No, he still has it. I still have it. It's a big wooden case that his jugs of homemade, his cough medicine came. The rest, I have,
How much alcohol was in there?
all my friend, it was tincture of opium.
Oh, much more.
Pine, what are those called? Pine nuts?
Oh, yeah.
Pine
Oh,
nuts.
pine nuts.
Pine nuts and tincture of cherry. Remember that cherry cough syrup? Ooh, that was so good. How did we get on that?
We're on peculiar, so
Yeah.
it fits right in.
Oh, it's-
Are there any questions?
So is it Trixie's as part of the store today or?
Yes, that was the garage.
That was the.
And the shed, there was a shed attached to the garage, to the east of the garage.
got it.
And then in that shed, my father had a collection of, he loved animals as much as I did. And so we had squirrels on their wheels. And we had, we had a skunk for 9 years, and she was a cat,
What was her name?
Missy Pierre. Missy Pierre Pew. She got a bath in Johnson's baby shampoo.
It's a lucky skunk.
And he would get restless in the winter, and so Dad would put her down in the bed, and then she would sleep for maybe 2 weeks, and then he was hungry, so then she'd come out and so she finally had a stroke. She rode in the car with me. Got in my daughter's playpen. We had to keep the playpen down because we wanted to climb in. She was there.
That's
But
awesome.
She never said a peep. She never meowed. She never barked. She never. My grandmother's rocked on her one time with a rocking chair, and she never said anything.
Was her smelling intact?
No.
I figured.
Those were the days when my dad found her upside down in the garbage can. And he took it to the vet at
Yeah.
that time. Instead of doing that, they still did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, so,
And the store, for those who don't know where the store was, it's now where the Ephraim Coffee Lab is on Church Street, correct?
yes, and
The clothes.
Kenny's clothing.
Yep, yep.
Kenny's Stuff. And is there an insurance building there too?
No, that's not.
No,
Yep.
no. So that's all I know.
Thank you very much.
Yes.